Welcome to my channel. Today we have a step-by-step tutorial that features these adorable digital stamps. So I'm working in my DIY art journal that I made from a playbill. And at the end of the video, I'm going to go step by step through this using my art journal prompt and process cards. So here's the DIY journal that I broke the pages by either putting a napkin on or a gel print. I've got a couple pages done and I will link to the original Make the Journal video as well as those pages. So this is a gel print and it's a very imperfect gel print, but I like the colors so I chose to put it on. Now there's a lot of white space on here. It's not very interesting as a background, but there are some marks and stuff. So what I'm going to do is just grab the colors, and the colors here are red and dioxazine purple. And I'm going to mix in a little bit of white gesso. So I'm going to colorize this with those colors. And if you think red and purple is an odd combination, I agree. But it works and it makes this lovely blend of color. So if you've got a red and a purple, mix them up on a piece of paper and see what colors come out. You might fall in love with it just like I have. So here I'm applying this with my finger. I think later on I use a makeup sponge. I'm just adding color. You're still going to see some of that mark making that came from that gel print, so it's not completely lost at all. So this is a great way, you know, we all have those gel prints or scrapbook papers that aren't just exactly what we want, but we can tweak them and use them up. Nothing needs to go into the garbage. So I'm picking a little bit of the cadmium red and then a little bit of the dioxazine purple, a little bit of white gesso. I just want a solid bit of color here that is going to be the base for more layers. So you can still see the grunge from the gel print, and that just adds another layer. So this trivet I just picked up at Dollarama in Canada, and it's silicone, and these are great to use on the gel plate or as stamps right onto the art journal page, which is what I'm going to do right here. So I'm just going to put a coat of white gesso. I could have used white acrylic paint on here, and I'm going to use my 2.5-inch Ranger brayer. Now even if you don't do gel prints, you may want to get a brayer because it's great for putting acrylic paint onto stamps and for brayering right onto the page. You don't need a gel plate to have to use a brayer. So here I'm just putting a coat of it on, and then I'm going to flip it over and use it like one giant stamp. Yum! Isn't that great? I can't wait to use this on the gel plate. And the great thing is you get two. So they had two different trivets. I've already used one, the circular one, in a previous video. So get together with a friend, buy each pack. So for $2.50, you're going to get two different ones. Trade them up. So I just want to lighten this page. I wanted to introduce a little bit more white space because of course I got rid of it all. Now these silicone trivets, they wash completely easily, no worries. But I do recommend getting the paint off because it dries on it and then it comes off afterwards. So there, I've added white space, added some more, another layer of pattern. Now, also talking about Dollarama, people have asked about my makeup sponges. Dollar Tree, the sponges they have there aren't the same. This is the Lori brand that I get from Dollarama. So if you're Canadian, go and buy. These are the ones that I use. And maybe that same brand will show up at Dollar Tree at some point in time. They do change. Now I'm using this number stamp from, it's a Tim Holtz collection, and I will list it in the description box below. It's from a set that I love using, and I'm stamping with the dioxazine purple, which is the darkest color there. Now when I'm choosing my stamps, I want different sizes. So the white that I stamped with my trivet is larger. This one's kind of a medium tone, and then you're going to see me pick another medium and then a smaller scale. And they're all just adding more pattern and more layers. It's not about actually seeing what you're stamping, it's just that little bit of interest. Now when you're done, if you get it in a place where it's smudged, I got a little too much paint, because everything's acrylic underneath, you can wipe it off and stamp again. And I do spray my stamps. When I use acrylic paint, I spray them with my Murphy's oil soap and I clean them. Here's another stamp. This is from Carabelle Studios, the circle stamp. And I thought, oh, okay, we have a lot of geometrics, straight lines from the original gel print and the trivet. I wanted to add some circles. So here I'm putting some black paint on with a makeup sponge and then stamping with the circles. And I'm going over top of some of the white stamping that I did with the trivet. Right now, I just want to make an interesting, complex background. And a lot of the pages, whatever the colors, this is a two-tone color scheme with the red and the purple, and then it makes a third color, depending on how much I mixed of each. And then I'm just adding black and white for the contrast. At this time, I have no idea what focal image I'm going to use. I just want to play and have fun in the studio. I didn't want to have to think too hard, so I chose to use the page from this journal that had the first step is already done. Now I've grabbed my French script stencil and I'm putting white acrylic paint on this for a very fine scale stamp, and I'm stamping that in a few places. Now I'm going to edge the page and I'm just shading around. I'm going to be using black acrylic paint. I just want to frame my page and see where it takes me. When you start with a page that's already had the gel print on it, you've kind of jump-started your creative process. It saves time. And some decisions are made for you. My color scheme was pretty much determined by it. And the patterns that may have been in the gel print are going to direct my choices of other things that I'm going to use. Someone just recently asked me for this shading video where I teach how to shade using this floating acrylic technique. When you are in my YouTube channel, there is a search bar, not at the top, that one takes you to and will search all of YouTube, but a little bit lower down, and that one will only search what's in my channel. So if you want the shading video, just type in shading. If you want magnolia, you can put magnolia and it will bring up anything. If I've used that keyword in a description, it should bring up that video. Some techniques you can put in there as well, and it will bring up whatever videos are relevant. So it's a great way to search within people's YouTube videos. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love this background. Now these two cans come from Elena Zinsky's digital stamps, and I was able to size them and actually revert them so that they could face each other. And that's the benefit of using digital stamps. You have more options. Speaking of digital stamps, I then went to my Sassy Sayings My Sentiment pack, and I pulled out a couple sassy sayings that go with these two cans. And again, with all my sentiment packs, you can resize them. You can shrink them for if you were doing ATCs, or you can blow them up bigger if you were doing a larger art journal page or canvas. So I decided to make two separate pages of this, so I shaded down the middle to kind of separate them. So this is a page, they're together, but they're separate. And these sassy sayings go really well with the Prima Julie Nutting dolls, with digital stamps, with Tim Holtz's crazy cats, dogs, birds. It's a sentiment pack that you will get a lot of use out of, especially if you like the sassy. Now I realize that I didn't cut out between his beak, so I am just going to grab some of that red and purple and paint it out. No one's the wiser. And there you can see a close-up of all the stamping that we did in the background. It all shows and it all adds to the finished product. I like using black and white focal images, especially when you've got a beautiful, colorful background. Other times you may want a neutral background and colorful focal images. Either way, it stands out. Here I'm using the shading technique again and shading with black to make the focal images stand out. And then I'm shading on the black and white just to add a little bit of interest. Here I had decided that I wasn't going to colorize any part of the toucan, but I did want to shade it just to make it look a little bit more finished, not just like I've glued a piece of paper down, a print down, or a stamped image down. And this just adds some grayscale, but you still have the high contrast with the background. And I'm shading around my sentiments as well. one's done, you can see the difference it makes. So I'm doing the other one. And I shade on the page, and then I shade on the stamped image, the Digistamp. And then I decide I'm going to add a little bit of color to them. Just some of the details. So I'm painting the flowers, but I'm using the same colors that I have in the background. I'm not introducing anything new. If I was going to colorize them, you might choose either the same as what I have done or across from the color wheel, because that's going to really pop. And I'm just using acrylic paint to colorize here. But you can use pit brush markers, watercolor, whatever color medium you wish, or whatever you have handy. Then I wanted to add a border to my page, so I grabbed this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I will link that below. And I taped off part of it, and I have these lines, and there's a tall one and a short one, a tall one and a short one. And I'm just going to stencil this in black right across the top and the bottom of the page. Just to make it, finish it off, add another little detail. Kind of made a smudge here, and I take some white paint and I paint that out afterwards so you can't really see it. I don't know about you, but I tend to be a very messy creator. I think white would have looked good here as well. There's not really room on the sides to do this detailing, so I just decided to do just the top and bottom. I think that those sassy sayings and those toucans are a perfect combination. They both, the toucans look like they've got some attitude, and they definitely do with my sassy sayings. So I'm going to make sure that this is completely dry, and then I'm getting out my Posca pen and I'm outlining the sentiment and the Digistamp. Just adding a little bit of sketchy line work around it. Just redefines the stamp. Now I'm grabbing my white and I'm going to add some doodling or detail work on the black. So I'm just using 2 dots and then 3 dots. I wanted it to stand out a little more than it would have been otherwise. I could have also outlined them, and that would have looked nice. When you're using the Posca markers, make sure you shake them up, especially the white, and that way you get them to be more opaque. If you don't shake them, sometimes they're a little watery and you're not going to get that opaque white you may be looking for. I did find these trivets in Amazon, so I will link that in my Amazon links below. And there is a list of countries now that if you go through the Amazon.com, which is the States, links, it'll direct you to your store, and I will get a commission from there. That's something new. There are 5 countries added to that, including Canada, the UK, not bad for not really having a plan when I started out. I really like the page. It makes me smile. Love the colors. So give cadmium red and dioxazine purple a chance on a page. I challenge you. So this started with a collage by collaging down a gel print to break the page. It was a gel print that was very bleh and not so great. I added colors using an analogous color scheme. Those are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. The red and the purple, they're there next to each other. I used this DIY mark making tool, a trivet, a silicone trivet, from the kitchen section. I stamped several different size stamps with acrylic paint. I edged the page with black, and I used the digital download for the focal image, but I adjusted the size and the orientation to fit what I wanted on my composition. I added a sentiment from my Sassy Saying sentiment pack, and I shaded the focal image. I used stencils to create the border, and then I doodled on them as well to add a little more detail. Thank you so much for joining me. Close-ups of the finished page follow. And as always, go get creative.